So, Eleanor, what are some of your main concerns when it comes to the region's diet and eating habits?
I think we have fallen into a very poor eating culture, and that's probably fairly common across England and even the UK, where people don't find time to cook. They eat stuff that they buy ready prepared or takeaways, and that just means that you're much less likely to really know the content of what you're eating. People also have a very low level of food skills, so when they're short of money, short of time, they can't pull together an affordable meal, so they're quite likely to spend their money on poor quality food that they're buying outside the home that will be quite high in fat, high in salt, high in sugar.
And I think it's fair to say, I mean, it is National Obesity Week.
Yes.
It's fair to say that obesity is a word that is thrown around a lot across the region. But just how big a problem is it here?
Well, obesity is actually a scientific definition. So there's a calculation of your weight and your height, which tells you whether you're obese or not. And obesity is the level of fat in the body which brings health risks. And then there are categories of obesity. But you're right that it has become one of those media headlines, and that can be unhelpful. I think most adults are more likely to be overweight than not. A smaller proportion of them will be obese. But obese is, as I say, a weight at which you will have a higher risk of health problems like heart disease, certain types of cancer, stroke, joint problems, and they're the kind of problems that we're very familiar with. Nearly everybody's got a relative or an older relative who's had one of those things or has died of one of those things. So it's well worth us taking obesity seriously. It's not just what you look like. Now, for most of us, what motivates us is what we look like. If you or I wanted to lose weight, we would be thinking about what we looked like at the end of it. We wouldn't be worrying about our long-term health outcomes. And maybe that's what we should focus on for people, that if you're a better weight, you look better, and that will motivate people to do something in the short term.
I mean, let's just talk about some of the shocking statistics, though. I mean, headlines are splashed across news websites, newspapers, you hear it on the radio, that, almost a quarter of people in Birmingham are obese.
Well, that's true, and I think people need to understand it and to understand that it is a serious health problem. However, whether that's enough to motivate people to make changes, I don't know. And the truth is, it's much better to prevent than to treat. Once you are overweight, it's difficult to lose weight. If we could get people to grow up with healthy lifestyles so that they prevented themselves from becoming overweight and obese, that would be much easier for everybody.
Why do you think obesity levels are so high in the Midlands?
Obesity is strongly linked to poverty and deprivation, and that seems not to make sense. But what we tend to find is that people on low incomes buy poor quality food, which is high in fat and calories and low in nutrients like iron and the vitamins that we need to prevent heart disease. So I think it's a combination of factors. We tend to have a lot of people in the Midlands who are working in low paid jobs, therefore they're short of time and short of money. They may have 2 jobs or even 3 jobs that they may be travelling between on public transport. If you get off the bus at the end of a hard working day, you've got to go home, the kids will say, "What's for dinner today, Mum?" And there's 3 takeaways next to each other, all competing with special offers for a family of 4. They'll throw in a 2-litre bottle of Coke free, then you would probably get them as well. Smells good, and you're not going to have any time before you eat.
And what are the effects of a fat population?
It means that we're likely to have higher rates of certain conditions. The typical one is diabetes. In Birmingham, we have very large numbers of people with type 2 diabetes, the adult onset type, which is almost entirely linked to lifestyle. It's about being underactive and being overweight. We actually have some children with adult onset diabetes in the West Midlands because they are so overweight as teenagers.
Okay, so as we've mentioned, this is National Obesity Week. Just how much awareness is there out there that it actually is?
I think there is awareness, but I think the problem we have is that people then see it very much as pointing the finger at the people who are overweight, whereas actually we should be doing 2 things. We should be supporting individuals to have healthier lifestyles through interventions such as those the NHS do, but we should also be changing structural things in the UK so that people are not so tempted to take the easy option, to take the lift instead of the stairs, to eat the less healthy food. And really, we haven't got that right yet. And there's been a lot of debate. The national body's been calling on the government. Public Health England has done a report to the government suggesting that we need a tax on sugary drinks. In addition to that, the tax on sugary drinks got the headline, a real ban on advertising aimed at children. The advertising ban at the moment is during children's programmes, but children watch family TV. So we should be banning all those adverts up to the evening watershed so that children are not being bombarded with messages about the poor quality, high calorie foods that they don't need, that don't form part of a balanced diet and maybe are okay as occasional treats.
And you feel that will really help control obesity?
All these things are ways of getting people to think. We're surrounded by a world in which you will gain weight over your lifespan unless you take steps not to. And I think that's the awareness we need people to get. If you or I were to eat one chocolate biscuit a week, to add more in calories than we spend over the years, we would become obese. So one needs to take steps to be active in daily life, not necessarily signing up to the gym or joining a class. Use the stairs instead of the lift, park your car a bit further away, walk to the post box instead of stopping at it on your way home. All those little things add up over the day. And in terms of food, I think we've got a particular problem in that healthy food is more expensive, and to eat well on a budget you need quite a high level of food skills, and we don't have those skills. A lot of people are very afraid of cooking. Cooking has become something we watch on television rather than that we do with our family on a daily basis.
Okay, so what are Birmingham NHS Community Healthcare doing in aid of National Obesity Week?
We haven't focused particularly on the week. We already have a range of programmes which are aimed at the prevention side, as I mentioned to you. So we work in all the early years settings in Birmingham. So that's any nurseries, whether they're private, state, voluntary run, or linked to children's centres and Sure Start centres. And we support them to promote from the earliest years a healthy diet and an active lifestyle with both the children in their care and with their parents and relatives. Then we move on to schools. Every year we work in about 30 schools in Birmingham. And again, we do a programme going across the whole year group, getting the children to think about what they eat, what the purpose of nutrition is. We work with the school on policy, and we run some cooking programmes in the school. Those are called Cooking with Your Kids, and we invite parents to come in and cook with their own children, supported by one of our facilitators with some of our tried and tested recipes, and people enjoy those very much. We also offer a children's weight management programme, and that's a very friendly, approachable service. Any person who's told your child is overweight will see that's the criticism. It feels like being told you're a bad parent, and we understand that. So all we ask is that if you're invited to the programmes, come along, give it a go. Our facilitators are great. You'll meet other families battling with the same problems, and people tend to enjoy the programme. Those who stick with the programme and turn up each week will lose weight. So we have this in Birmingham. Around the Black Country, the West Midlands, there are similar programmes. So people just need to find out what their local NHS is offering. And if they are invited or referred to a programme, please take it up, give it a go. It's very difficult to take that first step, but if you go along, you may find it's more enjoyable than you think.
So, I mean, you know, statistics by the National Obesity Forum show that the problem is getting bigger and bigger. We're talking about 1 in 4 adults in the UK, they're considered to be obese right now. But the trend suggests that this could rise above 50% by 2050. Is it too late to do anything?
I don't think it is, because I think once a problem is brought to people's attention, even subconsciously, people start doing things about it. A good example of that is school meals. School meals for about 3 decades were really unhealthy. They were deep fried, they were brown and crispy. And we were feeding the children, the state effectively was feeding them because it was school dinners, that food at lunchtime. And during those same decades, children became obese. And we turned around and said, what are these parents doing? Instead, we've taken the line that school meals need changing and they need guidelines which had been removed. So now school meals are much healthier. There are a lot of complaints because people have got used to the brown and crispy deep fried stuff. But now the schools have rules around what they can give children, but they try to do it in an educational way, engaging the parents, explaining why. So I think we can turn this round, and I think people will become more aware. As I've said before, I think there is a difficult balance in that people don't like being lectured to about what's good for them. We had a good example of that last week with the alcohol guidelines. But people do need to know facts. If science tells us this is bad for you, we need to tell people that. Then we need to support them to make small changes that they and their families can make and live with so that they prevent the problem getting any worse, or perhaps prevent their children becoming obese and struggling with the same battles they've struggled with through their adult life.
I mean, we have spoken about eating healthy and we both acknowledge that it comes at a price. I mean, it's something, It's something I've experienced. Trying to eat healthy, it does, it costs more. Is that a problem? Do the government need to do something about that?
I think probably the government could do more about that, but also individual outlets could do more about that. Some of the budget supermarkets do special offers if you buy 5 types of fruit and veg, or they did at one stage. The budget supermarkets often have good quality fruit and vegetables and more variety than some of the main supermarkets. Lots of the local independent retailers, particularly ethnic minority retailers, have a lot of fruit and vegetables at affordable prices. The problem is you then need the time and the skills to cook them, and that's where I would come back to our recipes, which are on our website. It's www.bhamcommunity.nhs.uk/recipes. Now, all the recipes there are quick, easy for people who've not necessarily cooked before, affordable, and ingredients that you'll find locally. So I would suggest that people go and have a look and have a go. It definitely is more expensive. And I think it's the combination of the cost and the fact that people are quite challenged by the skills. So people think it's something daunting or difficult to learn to cook. But I think we can help people to change their attitude. And personally, I would say cooking is one of the most creative things I do. It's not something I spend loads of time on because I'm a working person, but it's something you can do with other people and enjoy, and you can get a lot of satisfaction out of it. And that's the kind of feedback we get from our courses. The parents tend to say, I like coming on this course because it made me feel I was being a good mum.
And having read some of your reports, can you expand on the comment you made about food becoming a spectator sport?
Yes, I think I was slightly misquoted there because what I said was cooking had become a spectator sport, and I do think that's really true. People put a ready meal in the microwave because they haven't got time to cook, and then they rush and watch cooking on the telly. To me, that makes very little sense. It'd be much better if they put the time in the kitchen, help their children learn to chop carrots. That's how you convince them to try things, by getting them to get hands-on with it. And so we watch it, and we think it's difficult, expensive, and often slightly weird. Some of those television chefs use ingredients that you will not find in Birmingham and the Black Country, or not unless you look very hard or go to one of the more expensive shops. So I think we need to get back to basics. Macaroni cheese with peas, that's a good tea. And you can make that low fat by using lower fat milk. Your peas are frozen, they're in the freezer. And so I think we need to think about the fact that it is harder, it is more expensive, but it's something that's worth doing. It's something that's worth investing time in, and it can be really enjoyable and not something to be afraid of. And I think that was what I was trying to say, that in some ways the celebrity chef culture had made the problem worse. And I know some of the chefs have recognised that and are trying to work in different ways with community groups, which is really to be recognised as a big effort. It's good.
We mentioned earlier about fast food outlets, and we know Birmingham is notorious for takeaway outlets, but I think it's fair to say that nobody's forcing these people to eat out at places like this. Can we really blame the takeaway outlets?
I don't blame the outlets. Most of them are family-run businesses, and a lot of them have their own relatives and friends who are faced with some of the problems caused by obesity, like heart disease and diabetes. My team have done some work with them trying to get them to offer healthier options. We often find that they're very interested in helping their own community. However, I do think we've got enough now, and it doesn't help the businesses to have too many businesses of the same type. So there is a cap on takeaways in Birmingham. Only 10% of outlets can be takeaways. 10% is still quite a lot, and I think that's a positive move. However, I think it is challenging for people. As I say, if you're tired and hungry, it smells good. If you know that you're never going to be able to afford to take your children to Disneyland Paris, then you treat them on a weekly basis with more affordable treats, and those are often food-based treats. And I think that's another cultural shift we need, to start thinking of non-food-based things you can do with your kids. I mean, even if you go to the cinema, why is it you can only buy food in buckets? I never buy anything in the cinema because I object to being sold things in that quantity. Portion sizes are a big issue as well. There's been a cultural shift in those. Big bars of chocolate, saying it's for sharing. Have you ever tried to make 2 children share in public? And we should be having the smallest possible bags of crisps and of chocolate. Those foods have their place in a balanced diet, but they should be occasionally and in small amounts, and we need to relearn that. We've really lost perspective on portions.
There was a report earlier on in the year whereby over 80 patients in the Midlands were too fat to be scanned at the region's hospital. When you read something like this, what runs through your head?
I feel very sad for those people because their quality of life must be hugely affected. I've mentioned some of the risks of being overweight, having too much fat in your body, and that's what we're talking about. The scanner can't see through the fat, or they can't fit into the scanner. So there are risks around heart disease, but there are drugs that will tackle those risks. So if people are taking those drugs, you would think, oh, well, okay, they're removing some of the risks, but their quality of life will be awful. They probably never leave the house. If they do, they're probably really conscious of what people are thinking or even saying about them. I've listened to a lot of patients who've struggled with their weight all their lives, and they say things happen to them in public, like they may get on the bus and someone say, you should go on a diet, love. That person then goes home and binges because food is a huge emotional issue for them. Most people who are that obese have deep-rooted psychological problems and they need very specialist help. There are services across the Midlands called specialist weight management services that will work with them, and they'll involve a dietitian and a psychologist. Possibly for some of those people the answer is surgery, because there are various types of surgery that can help people to lose weight. But by that time people are really having quite a miserable life, and I think we should be more sympathetic and recognise that it's very rarely the individual, it's something in their early life that's triggered this association of food with comfort, with emotional eating, and they're using food to solve other problems, and they need a lot of help if that's going to change. But we can nip this in the bud, and if we did more in childhood and with young people, we could perhaps prevent more of those people coming through.
Is it the government's or the NHS's responsibility to overcome obesity issues, or is it the individuals?
I think all three. Individuals have to want to change, and the way we motivate individuals is showing them that the state cares. Not that we're telling them off, not that the NHS is telling them off, but that we're saying, you have a problem, we need to work with you to solve it. And I think it's some of the structural things, like a tax on fizzy drinks would be great in my opinion. Fizzy drinks have no nutritional value at all. There's very few foods where that's true. I can make a case for chocolate, it's got some iron in, having it in moderation is fine. Chips, good source of vitamin C. You shouldn't be eating them every night or the calories will add up. But fizzy drinks are giving you nothing except sugar, and they rot your teeth. They add to the calories. We tend to consume them with other less healthy foods. And even the sugar-free diet varieties are bad for your teeth because of the acid in them. So really, for me, there is no role for them at all. So certainly having a tax on those would be good. And it's not to say never have them, but people would then think twice about it and see it more maybe as a treat or an occasional thing.
Lastly, Eleanor, give me your honest opinion on what you think the future of obesity will be in the Midlands.
I think it'll probably continue to get worse for a while, but I do think it will change. I think there's some evidence from other countries that obesity has plateaued. Mexico is the country that's introduced the tax on soft drinks, and that they think that's worked. So I think things can change, but I think it really needs people, individuals, families to feel they're not being told off, they're being supported by the state and by the NHS to make changes towards a healthier lifestyle. It's a wake-up call. We now have a problem, and it's a bit late for some people, but we have got the opportunity to prevent an unhealthy life for our young people.